So I had this conversation with my boyfriend, and I told him a certain situation that happened that day, and I said, well, this guy approached me, and he was interested in me, and he was asking me about the details. He was like, what did you say when that happened? And after I got done explaining, I asked him the same question: what would you do in a situation? But what caught me off guard was when he said, I hope you didn't respond to this man just because of your relationship. Just because you're in a relationship with me, you're not using that as the reason why. And I thought, why not? So to better understand him, I had to get his perspective. So I asked him the same question in return: what would he do? And he said, well, I would, I would tell that person that they don't have any access to me. I'm unavailable. Not just because of my relationship, but even if I was single, I'm unavailable. And I said, well, and then he said, especially, there's no attraction there. If I'm single, that will be the case because I'm unavailable because the attraction isn't there. And I'm like, well, what if the attraction was there, but you're in a relationship? He said, I would still say I'm unavailable. This didn't make sense to me. It just didn't click. And I just was like, hold up. So if you're in a relationship, I asked him, like, so what if you're attracted to that person and you're in a relationship? He said, I would still say I'm unavailable. And what just got to me was the fact that you're not considering your relationship at all. You're just saying you're unavailable. But at the same time, this is the same mindset that you would have if you're single and you're saying I'm unavailable. But the attraction isn't there. But if it's there and you're single, you wouldn't you wouldn't be available, right? I mean, you would be available because the attraction's there. But if you're in a relationship, but the attraction is there, you will still say you're unavailable. But why is a question I'm asking, wouldn't you take your relationship into consideration? You know, but at the same time, this could be, well, I don't know, it just makes it confusing. It just makes it confusing because, well, at the same time, you're saying you're not available to a relationship. You're not available. Like, what aren't you available to? Would be my question. So that will be that person's question. And that will make the conversation go on longer than it should. Because this person doesn't know if you're available for a relationship, if you're available for a friendship. What aren't you available for? So now you're just creating more time for you and that person to have some type of connection or get to know that person, or you're creating space for another person to come into the picture, come into that circle of that relationship, because you didn't bring up the fact that you're in the relationship. You're just saying you're unavailable. You're giving that person time, space to question. You know, you're allowing that question mark in the midst of what you already have going on in your life. So that's a doorway, that's an opening, that's access. So instead of just cutting it off rip, saying I'm unavailable to a relationship, boom, you know, that knocks that choice right off the table. Now that person know what you're available for, so therefore it can go on that way. But if you just say I'm unavailable and you don't say anything about your relationship, then that just means that leaves a question mark, and that makes it seem as though, okay, well, you're available for a relationship. You could be, and that gives a person the chance to assume, time to assume. you know you're giving another person time, access to your time. you know you're opening that door. And I feel like if you are in a relationship, then that should be the first thing: I'm unavailable for a relationship. Okay, got that off the table. Now we can just keep on, we can pursue other places if that's the type of relationship you want to be in. you know, or you can nip that in the butt and say, you know, since I'm unavailable for a relationship, you know, I would rather not continue this conversation. You know, some people just need clarity. And when he couldn't give me a straightforward answer about that, you know, it just lets me know that something, you know, it just lets me know that you have no clarity. So therefore, if you have no clarity about what you're available for, and this just lets me know in the end how this is going to play out when that question comes to you, or when you're approached by a female and, you know, this female wants to know what's going on with you, then, you know, it just sounds like mind games. And I don't want to be played with. You know, I don't want you to play mind games with me. You know, so I'm going to need you to have some type of clarity on your end. You know, so yeah, that conversation just was like, what? It just had me sideways. Like, hold up. And it's like my protection, it's like I went into complete protection mode after that conversation. I'm like, hold up. Because now we're getting somewhere. You know, I can't be played with. So that let me know his mindset. Something that I wasn't aware of before. And yeah, this is just going to take, like I said, it's going to take me some time to process the man that you are, and what I'm getting myself into. And if I want to continue on, because for one, I'm not the type where my heart can't be played with, you know, and that goes for everyone else on the outside. You know, if you don't have a direct answer, a straightforward answer, or you don't nip anything in the butt, you know, when it comes to you, then that just leaves me in a place of you're allowing them people to have access to me, and I don't want any access to me. You know, I'm not saying cut everybody off. I'm just saying nip it in the butt, you know, period. I'm unavailable for a relationship. Boom. You know, that jar is closed. That's all. You know, so um that's all I'm saying. You know, no access to me. Don't allow anybody to have access to me. Period. Don't let them wonder about this situation or wonder about this jar, because I'm in that jar. I'm in that relationship jar. Don't allow people's minds to go into that jar or wonder about that jar. You know, close that cap, close that lid, seal that lid, and then you can go about your, you know, continue on about your life, but make sure they have no access to my jar. That's all I'm saying. So yeah. um, so that's all I wanted to talk about. I'll talk to y'all next time. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Be notified and share at your own free will to show you care.